On the Table with Dan Barker.
On the Table with Dan Barker. It's a segment. That's a segment.
Right off the dot. Right
Nice
at the top.
work.
Right at the top.
Are you a marketing director?
I'm all right.
Wow.
I'm all right. That's all I got for today, though. Don't come back looking for more. Thanks.
You're either on the bus or you're off the bus.
Welcome aboard episode 31 of Ridin' the Bus, the official Iowa Wild podcast presented by Explore Minnesota is on the way. Off season, here we are. We're laid back. We're relaxing. We're kicking our feet up. I got to the lake. I thought about the season. I forgot my phone at my parents' house for fishing opener when I was up in Minnesota, so I didn't have my phone for 4 days. And Joey Goldstein, it was magnificent.
Well, that's it. We're definitely in the off-season mode. I can assure everybody listening and watching, Ben is in off-season mode for sure.
Back in the office now, though, and getting ready to deliver episode 31, and we have a familiar face on our show today.
Yep, Matt Hendricks coming on, new GM of the Iowa Wild, would be our third recurring guest behind Dakota Mermis and Brett McLean. So having him back in the fold to really talk about life in this new role. We've talked a lot about, on the last time he came on, we talked a lot about his career and everything, but this is a little bit of a different focus, and about the role itself and the transition and what to expect. So good conversation. I think it's going to be great for Wild fans to listen to. Hearing a fresh new voice, fresh face, if you will, for people. I think it's going to be knowledgeable for Wild fans.
Yeah, a knowledgeable guy, a straight shooter, no nonsense, and one of the great laughs, too. He's got such a big, boisterous laugh, and we get to hear that in this interview as well. But before we get there, some items to discuss, to talk about before we get to Hendy. Joey, what do you got on the docket today? I've made enough itineraries in the season, so I left you with this task today. Actually, I didn't even leave it with you. You just did it because you're a good co-host.
Yeah. It's podcast prep. That's what we do here, podcast prep.
I did none because, again, I didn't have a phone.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite, just a sidetrack real quick. I was going to say sidebar. I'm just neck deep in this
you are.
Court case.
You've roped me into it, too.
Yeah,
yep, you've roped me into it, too.
I'm not going to get into it here. I could do a whole episode on it. I was going to say sidebar. But one of my favorite still moments is, I think it was a Sammy Walker episode. You did no prep, and I came just fully stocked. So that one always sticks in my mind. But, yeah, I just kind of wanted to go through some of the things that have happened since we were last on here, which was exit day. Obviously not a ton has happened in the world of the Wild or Minnesota or here. The hockey ops changes, which we'll talk about with Matt. It was kind of really the biggest news. Gavin Hayen re-signing is a big piece. First familiar face to be brought back in of the free agent group, and we talked about that a little bit with Matt, why he was a priority, all that fun stuff. Probably the beginning of a small little wave at some point here. The RFAs will get their qualifying offers. Guys like Beckman, Sammy Walker, Adam Raska. So hopefully they get qualified.
Yeah,
basically.
would
That's
like
good.
to
You
see
kinda
all
hope
three of them back.
you would hope
Absolutely,
that they all come back. But that's a hockey ops decision. We are in the thick of planning for the upcoming season. Theme nights, promotions, giveaways, specialty jerseys, events, all that fun stuff. So the whole front office upstairs, we're all hard at work at piecing that together, getting ready for the schedule to come out sometime, hopefully in July. Promo schedule shortly thereafter, tickets on sale, all that fun stuff as we lead right into September and the NHL camp opening up. But really the biggest thing outside of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which your bracket looks good, mine doesn't.
Correct. Been gripping, brackets aside. It's been
fun to watch.
And I say this every year, but that's what it is. Every year there's a different narrative. There's different bounces. There's different injuries, and then there's these arrivals of an Artur Shelovs in Vancouver, or the KG veteran Calvin Pickard coming in to win a huge game for the Edmonton Oilers. Former Grand Rapids Griffin played against the Iowa Wild a few seasons ago. So I love all those little intricacies and what makes each and every season, each and every playoff different, unique, and fun.
Yeah, and there's always little storylines too within all that. I mean, you look at a team like Dallas, who I think if you were to put most games played without winning a Stanley Cup, Dallas has majority of those guys. Your Joe Pavelski, Suter, like they've got a lot of guys on that roster.
Jamie Benn,
who've played a lot of games, never won a cup. So like you're rooting for guys like that.
Yeah.
You know, you want to see guys like that finally get their chance to raise the cup. I was actually just looking the other day at like because we were talking about the NBA. I was talking with my friends at home about Celtics and Al Horford. I think he's played the most. Played the most playoff games in the NBA without having won a title in terms of active players. So we were looking to see which NHL players have played the most NHL games without winning a cup, and it's like it's all the Sharks guys. It's like Marlowe, Thornton, Joe Pavelski. It's like number 3 on that list. So it's just interesting to see, and you know you root for guys. That's always the fun. Who's getting the cup? Does he hand it off? And things like that. So I don't know. But outside of Stanley Cup playoffs, World Championships are happening right now. Wild very well represented at the World Championships, both Minnesota and Iowa. Team Sweden's all Minnesota for the most part.
Yeah.
Matt Zuccarello's out there, Marco Rossi, Matt Boldy. And then for Slovakia, you got Samuel Halavai, who's been backstopping them every couple games, playing pretty well for Team Slovakia, and then has actually gotten them into the quarterfinals. And then for the Czechia team, David Spacek has been, I don't even know if you'd want to say he's a surprise, but like a revelation for them almost.
Outstanding.
Someone who I don't know was initially probably written to make that team, but worked his bag off here, especially at the end of the season. Got there. He's tied for their team lead in points from a defenseman. He's on their first power play unit. He had two assists the other day against Team Canada. They lost Team Canada, which put them at second in the pool, but they're in the quarterfinals as well, playing against Team USA tomorrow, as we're filming this on the 22nd. On the 23rd, they're playing tomorrow. So a lot of Sweden's playing, USA's playing, so a lot of chances for someone that you normally see in an Iowa Wild sweater taking home some kind of a medal at the World Championships. It's exciting, and it's in Prague, in the Czech Republic, which is
that video you sent me of the goals. I finally got to watching it.
Yeah,
my gosh,
it's this moment, and I forget who they were playing. They were playing Austria, and it's hard to describe. It looked like I was watching a soccer game. The Czech team had just scored a goal, and everybody in the arena was jumping and cheering and almost like the singing chants.
Soccer style.
Yeah, so everybody's in unison jumping. It looked insane. And then all of a sudden, just a puck pops out, breakaway for the Czech team, goal, and the roof basically blew off the place. It was insane. He's someone who's on our list of guests for the summer. I hope we can get a chance to talk to him and just ask him about that experience, because it's one thing to play for your country. It's one thing to play for your country on home soil. So I'm curious.
And produce for your country.
Yeah.
The creme de la creme there, really.
That's something I really want to hear a lot about. So.
And that doesn't surprise me at all. That not only that he made the team as a bit of a, like you said, surprise, but that he's playing well. He played so well down the stretch. I thought, and I think, I'm not quoting anybody from the Hockey Ops staff, but I think that opinion was shared by Brett McLean, Ben Simon, Mike Murray, Matt Hendricks, etc. I think they were really happy. He was of the rookie defensemen at the end of the year. It's funny. I feel like all the rookie defensemen, they had little windows where you were like, I see it. I see what Carson Lambos could look like. I see what David Spacek could look like. I think even for a small sample size, saw what Kyle Masters potentially could look like, and he's someone that's obviously going to try to vie for a spot here next year too. But Spacek in the final 10, 15-ish games of the year, I think he had that 3-point night, 3 helpers against, I think it was Grand Rapids at home in the win. He had some really good nights, and not only offensively, which is something that he's been heralded to do. He was a point-per-game player in the QMJHL, but he sneaks onto the power play in the second half of the year, a power play that was very good down the stretch for Iowa. And also, he was playing solid defensive hockey, too, which is one of the things they really circled for him early, and they circle for every defenseman early. It's always the biggest adjustment, is how do you defend. And I thought he was playing big minutes. I thought he was an important part of Iowa's blue line when they were playing their best hockey of the season. So not surprised at all to see him carry that into the World Championships. And also won't be surprised when he carries the momentum he's going to pull out of playing for Czechia, in Czechia, all the way into October, because that is a momentum gainer if you're a young player to get to step onto that stage and go, yeah, I can play against the best players in the world and succeed without question. So that's great news for the Minnesota Iowa Wild and for David Spacek that he's doing as well as he's doing there.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to see how that tournament continues to progress now that pool play's over and you're really into the your medal round, right? This is where it's win or go home for these guys. So excited to see that. The only other real thing to get into before we flip it over to Hendy is just around the AHL, kind of what's happening in the Calder Cup playoffs for people who may not be in the know and whatnot, just kind of updating everybody. Probably going to be, by the time you listen to this, probably outdated by a couple games probably. But starting where we know the most about is Milwaukee Grand Rapids Central Division Finals. That series is tied 1-1 right now. As we talked about before, not a position I think we expected Milwaukee to be in, not because they weren't good, but because they were kind of getting the break speed off of them by Texas.
They were playing their worst hockey of the year at the worst time of the year to be playing your worst time. Everybody talks about peaking at the right time. They weren't doing that. They had that incredible what was it? Was it a 20 game winning
close to 20,
streak?
maybe 19, close to
19.
That.
Yeah, they were trying to track down the John Cooper Norfolk Admirals record. They have second longest winning streak in AHL history, and then, which you would expect, there was a dip, but that dip lasted for a while. That was the scary part. If I'm a Milwaukee Admiral fan, is I'm like, geez, did we just play our best hockey and we played it right out of the building? But no, they've found it again, and they're right in it. And now Grand Rapids could win that series without a question. I think that's a really good team too. But nonetheless, they have found their game again, and I think that's going to be probably a series that I would expect to see maybe go to 5. I think probably both of those teams are pretty evenly matched, and both defend so well and have great goaltending. But it was Troy Grosenick who got him through the Stars series, which is such driving point that we've talked about on this show before, and everybody talks about. In the playoffs, you have to have 2 goalies, period. At some point, it may not be as long as the sample size like we saw Grosenick get in that opening round, but whether it's like Pickard getting a game and winning a game, but you don't really see it. Will be interesting to see if the Rangers find a way in. Can they ride Shesterkin the whole way? Because that's who they've ridden right now into the conference finals, is Igor Shesterkin. Is it him, or will they need Jonathan Quick at some point? But clearly Milwaukee needed Troy Grosenick.
Yeah, and every team's kind of, we'll talk about another goalie in the playoffs in a little bit, but there's teams who are certainly riding on one person, right? But it's, you look at what Milwaukee did all year, and it's kind of what the Bruins did all year with Ullmark and Swayman. You get 2 really good goalies going back and forth, and any night you can put them out, you feel confident. But Askarov couldn't. Texas had them all figured out, right? So they put in Grosenick, then they rattle off 3 straight at home, win that series, and now they're back in a good spot. I think they're playing good hockey again. They've got Zach LaRue, who's leading the AHL playoffs right now in scoring, goals, and points. So they're not a cakewalk for Grand Rapids, but Grand Rapids isn't a cakewalk for Milwaukee. So excited to see how that season goes out. That series goes. I do think it probably goes the distance as well. Waiting for them in the Western Conference Finals. Once again, Coachella Valley just rolled their way through the Pacific Division, just loaded up basically from last year, and there's really not much else to say about them aside from the fact that obviously they're not an expansion team, just kind of a relocation team, but to have the success that they're having their first 2 years of franchise is unbelievable.
Starting to look like a potential Calder Cup rematch with Hershey up 2 games on Nick Patan and the Hartford Wolfpack.
Yep, that's the next one.
But Cleveland is no shrinking violet either. They're a team that I certainly have heard the most about, minus Hershey from the Eastern Conference, and of course I would. They won their division, they won the North, but that's a Columbus franchise that has been in the dirt for a few years, and when you spend time down in the bottom of the NHL, you accrue prospects and you accrue picks and high-end players, and Cleveland right now is fueled by that.
Yeah, they've had a lot of success on the AHL level over the last couple of years. They're up 2-0 on Syracuse right now. I would assume that they end up winning that series 3-0. Same with Hershey. I think they're going to win 3-0 as well. But talking about the goalies, Jet Greaves is really cemented himself as the future for Columbus as a goaltender. at the All-Star game this year. He and Jesper shared that top goaltender honor from the skills competition, but right now he's second in the AHL in playoff wins, and he's first in goals against and save percentage. This is a guy they can rely on night in, night out. It's his net. He's not giving it up. And then they got guys like Trey Fix-Wolansky, who at first look probably doesn't look too much like a hockey player, but could be the best goal scorer in the league if you were to stack them all up against each other. The guy just always finds the back of the net. I think he's their all-time leader in goals scored in that franchise. So, which is impressive given how. Yeah, that franchise has been around for a bit. Whether
Correct.
It's Lake Erie,
I was going to say back when they were Lake Erie
for a bit,
Calder Cup champion Lake Erie Monsters once upon a time.
Yep. So
once upon a time.
That's the snapshot, the wrap around the AHL, and we'll keep everybody updated.
Wraparound, nice.
Yeah, we'll keep everybody updated as the Calder Cup playoffs move on.
Before we get to Hendy, do want to touch on it. Obviously, the tragic news out of Greenfield in Iowa this week. Carlisle impacted by this too, but casualties and lives lost in the really rough weather that we had this week. And boy, you don't have any words for that. But certainly, I know talking to Allie Brown-Cornick today, Wild trying to find a way to get involved and to help in any way we can. And there's not a lot of great ways to help in a situation like that, but the community coming first for the Iowa Wild. So there'll be more on that for sure in how we get involved. But certainly if anybody's tuning in and knows anybody from there or is from there, we're thinking about you. My prayers coming from the Gistelson household and from everybody here on the Iowa Wild staff. We mourn with Greenfield and with anybody else that there was more towns impacted by that too. So Iowa will rally. It's a tight-knit community, Des Moines, and it's a tight-knit state in Iowa, but certainly with heavy hearts today, podcasting, thinking about all that everyone's going through. So for all of you out there, we're thinking about you, and Iowa will stay with you, right? So hard to segue out of that, but let's you got to touch on it. You got to touch on it. But hopefully, if anything today, if you are tuning in, we can maybe bring you a laugh or bring you some joy and bring you a little levity. And a guy who's got a lot of levity is the former Winnipeg Jet, former Washington Capital, a guy who played with not only Alex Ovechkin, but Connor McDavid too. Talk about getting to play with the elite of the elite in Matt Hendricks. That's what's on tap as we scrape the ice and head to period 2 with the new general manager of the Iowa Wild, Matt Hendricks.
Before we get to our interview, we need to shout out Explore Minnesota. Dive into Minnesota's pristine waters and some of the best paddling in the country. From the birthplace of the mighty Mississippi to the nation's largest freshwater lake, discover for yourself what makes Minnesota the star of the North. Visit exploreminnesota.com.
You're getting really good at these, Goldstein, because you've picked a perfect ad for a perfect segue into our guest today, who loves the pristine waters of Minnesota.
While we were sitting in the lounge and you guys were talking about it, I went through the reads and tried to select the right one.
Avid angler, avid fisherman, former member of the Minnesota Wild player development staff, now the general manager of the Iowa Wild, Matt Hendricks, general manager of the Iowa Wild. You're a recurring guest, too, on Ridin the Bus. Welcome back. And what does it sound like? What does it feel like to have general manager put in front of your name, Hendy?
Well, that's pretty exciting. It's I'm trying to figure it all out right now. I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose a bit, but excited for the opportunity and to, most importantly, be a part of these guys day to day now more often, these players and prospects of the Minnesota Wild. So help them reach their dreams and be a bigger part of it now.
Well, it's great to have you back on the podcast. And the last time we did this, we talked a lot about your career, your role in development. This is going to be very centered on now this role. And what does this look like for you now? What will maybe the team look like coming into next season? Obviously a long time and a lot of work in between now here at the end of May and when training camp will begin in September. But let's start with this one, Hendy. And we won't ask you a bus story because you've told your great bus story for us last time. For anybody that hasn't heard it, go back and listen to the first Matt Hendricks episode with the Portland Pirates bus starting on fire. That's a nice little plug for our episodes earlier. It was a great show. The process, getting to this point now, When did it begin? When did it start? When did you have it in your mind that maybe this could be coming down the pike for you? 5 years, going into 5 years with the organization, you've been doing player development in the past. Talk us through the process, and when did this start to look like it was going to be a thing where you would be replacing Mike Murray, who, of course, also gets elevated into the AGM role with Minnesota?
That's a good question. I would say, as I started transitioning from out of being an everyday player, and starting to really think, what do I want to do when I'm done? And coaching was always something that was on my mind. But I got to play for some very good general managers in my career, and I loved that they had the ability to go out and build a team and to make tweaks throughout the season and to work with and manage or lead a big group of people to help make this work. And every year you go back to the drawing board and you figure out, okay, where were we off? Where were we thought this was going to help us get over the hump, and it didn't. So now we have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. And for me, I think that architect side of things is something that I will have passion in, and it excites me.
Do you think that you will reach out to some of these past GMs that you've had at some point and try to pick their brain a little bit on maybe what don't I know that I should know now that you're in the chair?
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out for advice, but I don't have to go very far at the offices in St. Paul to get great advice. I've got Bill Guerin right there, Mike Murray, who's been doing this job for a while, and the Minnesota Wild staff in general. We have tremendous scouts on the pro side, tremendous scouts on the amateur side. We've got arguably one of the best developers in Brad Bombardier, Cody McLeod, who had a great hockey career as a player. Like, I have so many great resources. And then I come into the locker room here in Iowa, and I have Brett McLean and his staff. So I don't have to go very far to get some answers if I really need it.
We've talked obviously to you in the past about the player development role. We've had Mike and Bill both on here talk about the GM role. For you, it's kind of a unique situation going from the player development role into the GM role. How does that background benefit you in this role going forward?
Well, I think being in a developmental league right now, having relationships that I've built for, with some of these guys 5 years, I understand who they are as individuals. I understand who they are as players. Even though we, speaking on Brad and Cody and myself, were in development, we still had our fingers on this team. We weren't with them on the day-to-day, but we would try to get with them, be here, be present once a month, twice a month. Last year it was a little bit more frequent. So we understand what Coach McLean and his staff have built here in terms of the culture, in terms of the passion within this group. They're young, but having had those experiences with them earlier in their careers, you start to find trends and see the direction that they're going in.
What is the thing you're most excited about in taking on the new GM title?
Filling holes and being able to do that with our scouts and our scouting staff, and trying to find the right pieces to help our prospects take the next step.
And then on the flip side, what do you envision being one of the toughest things to learn as you go along? Because, like you said, it's kind of like drinking out of a fire hose. There's got to be something that's a little daunting. Like, if there's something about it, what is it that's like, oh, this is going to be a tricky piece to learn. It's going to take some time to figure out.
Well, I think making sure the communication side and making sure that we are all on the same page with everything that we are trying to do here. I feel that a team effort is a team effort. It isn't one person or two people making moves or making big decisions on things. I believe in the team and making sure that they have all the information that I have and being a sounding board for our staff.
Make sure Ben's on speed dial.
No, he will be. He already is. I made that adjustment in my phone already.
One of my favorite, likewise, you can get through my firewall at night when I turn it on Do Not Disturb, and there's a few people on there. Mike Murray is still on there. Brett McLean is on there. And now you have been added to that as well. So you can call me anytime, day or night. And I shudder to think about that because it will happen day or night, and I'm ready for it. But the one thing I love when you call me.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
You're going to have to teach me how to do that. The firewall. I need
Here we
that.
go. I already got a task now. I already got to do it. It's been in the chair for not even 2 weeks. It's like, hey, first thing, let's sit down and tell me about this as he walks in and outdresses both of us, Joey, today. We should mention reason you're here and wearing a suit. Or we could just make it and say you wear a suit all the time, because actually usually when I see you, you are very dapperly dressed. But media tour today, Alec Lesner setting up a busy day for you today with the Des Moines media. When you think about Iowa and you think about this state, this culture, what comes to mind for you, being a native Minnesotan who, much like myself, grew up just north of the great state of Iowa?
Well, I think of a very passionate fan base in regards to sports. You know, I think of the Cyclones, the Hawkeyes, Caitlin Clark and her tremendous season in basketball, and how exciting it is to watch her, and how great she's been for the women's sport and for young girls trying to follow in her footsteps. I love coming to Des Moines. It's an incredible city. When you've been in the American Hockey League for a long time and you've been to a number of road cities, Des Moines is a tremendous spot for players to come and play, to have families, they become a big part of the community. And for me, it's a 3.5-hour drive. It's perfect.
And that point you just mentioned, Des Moines being a great city in the American League, I look at kind of the two sleeper cities, if you will, to me, and it's the ones I've gotten to see. I'm sure you could say in the West that maybe I've not gotten to yet, and certainly on the East Coast. But Des Moines and Grand Rapids are two places that, unless you know somebody that's played there, you might look at it and go, really? And then talk to guys in the room, you talk to players that have played elsewhere, and then they come here, and we always liked visiting, and then the minute they come here and play, they go, wow. Being in Des Moines, and I've heard the same from Grand Rapids. Joe Hickett's compared Grand Rapids very similarly to Des Moines in a lot of ways. When you're going to get into the chair and you're going to start trying to bring some likely more older players in, this is maybe when this would appeal to more to an older veteran type player. Do you think that'll be a part of the pitch when you're talking to some of these older veteran-type players that are looking for a spot in the American League? Do you think that might be a part of it for you when you're having your conversations?
Well, yes, for sure. If it gets to that, I will definitely speak on my experiences, not only being here, but having played a lot of games at the American League level as a player. For me personally as a player, what I loved in the cities that I loved playing in, what was the weather like? Were there good restaurants? And what is the arena like? What are the facilities like? And it doesn't get much better than here in Iowa.
No.
I mean, the Wells Fargo Arena is a tremendous place to play. Good fan support, an incredible locker room, things that you don't typically see at the American Hockey League level. So it checks a ton of boxes for me individually. When I played, those are the things that I look for, and I tend to believe and feel that a lot of players feel the same way.
And a sauna. I know you're a big sauna guy too.
And
how many American League teams have a sauna down
exactly
in the locker room, right?
Yes.
Right.
I'm with you.
You mentioned earlier holes in the lineup, and I know it's early, and I know you're not going to pull the curtain back and tell us we're going after this player, and this player. But is there a prototype, or is there a certain type of maybe a few players that you think you've identified already, whether it's your conversations with Mike Murray, whether it's your conversations with Brett McLean? I'm sure you probably haven't had a ton of these conversations yet. They'll start to heat up more now as you prepare for free agency in July. But can you give us any kind of a nugget on maybe some areas of the roster that you as a staff have identified and said, we need to have this next season?
Well, we are going to sit down on Tuesday next week, and our meetings will start. Our staff's coming into town, into St. Paul, and we will start working on all of these details and figuring out exactly what we need not only to help the Iowa Wild, but to help the Minnesota Wild. And we are a feeder program for them. For me, personally speaking, there's a lot of good hockey players out there. Very good hockey players. For me, I want guys that are committed, guys that help our culture, and guys that are coachable. So there's a lot of great hockey players out there. I want to find the great ones that have those characteristics.
You wasted no time making a splash in your first move, re-signing Gavin Hayne. Can you talk
Love
a little
that
bit,
one, by the way.
Talk a little bit about
the
process there? Like, why was he a priority the year that he had? Why was he somebody you guys like targeted and said we've got to have him back?
Well, for the fans out there that don't know him, they get to watch him on the ice. Blue-collar, hard-working kid, does anything you ask him to do, willing and committed to help win hockey games here in Iowa. You get to know the person, it's the same thing. He is a hard-working kid that comes to the rink with energy and passion to get better every day, and that is the type. He fits the cloth, the mold of what we want here in Iowa.
That's great. I mean, I'm excited to see what else comes as we get going here, but it's always nice to see what familiar faces are coming back. I think people are at least the reaction we've seen so far, is people are excited about having him back. So that's great.
We are too, Joey. We are too.
It's fabulously put. He may be, at least from this year's roster, if you were to look at the player and the personality, might be the most mirror image, right, of who you see on the ice is exactly who you see off of the ice. And there are a few other guys that I think about like that too. But Gavin Hayne, great to have back. Step one of filling out this roster. We did have one thing, and I'll let Joey lead this one because Joey was the one who found it. When the announcement went out of you taking over the GM helm, some pictures started to resurface of a tweet that you put out during your playing career, and Joey sent it to me, and instantly I said, well, we're going to have Hendy on at some point as the GM, and we got to bring this up with him and help us learn more and help you illuminate this story. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah, I think the thought was, how did we miss this the first time we talked to him? Like, I feel like if you were to just Google Matt Hendricks, this is going to be one of the first things that comes up. So I believe you guys were in Dallas.
Correct.
When it happened. But just a pretty normal defensive shift. Puck comes out near the blue line. Alex Goligoski winds up, rips a slap shot, hits you in an area that's not very comfortable.
Not at all.
Where the sun don't shine.
Yeah. You make your way off the ice, and then after you put out a tweet thanking Bike and Russell Athletics for saving your bacon with a picture of the cup, the protective cup that is cracked, broken, dented,
eviscerated.
So I guess what's your recollection of that moment? And then I know we were talking a little bit before about like the aftermath and some of the good that came from that.
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story in the sense. So we had a young player that had sustained an injury about 3 games in a row where he stayed on the ice, where our trainer had to go out to him. And he came back to the bench and he wouldn't miss a shift. So it happened 3 games in a row. Now we're skating around the ice and pregame skate in Dallas, and I'm getting ready to go out there, and I'm thinking in my head, I have to have a chat with this player. I don't want to see this tonight in Dallas. So I have that talk with him on the ice.
What a preamble to this.
Yes, and it was a friendly conversation, but it was like, hey,
you're setting the tone. Like if you're going to come back and play next shift. Yeah. You can't lay on the ice.
It can't be happening on a night-to-night basis. And I believe it was a penalty kill. I was coming back into the zone. They tried to make a cross-seam play to the net, and it deflected off our defenseman and shot straight back out to the blue line. And as I turned, Goligoski was taking the shot. And it hit me, and I dropped like a ton of bricks. And all I kept thinking about was you have to get up. You cannot lay on the ice. You just had this conversation with this player. You have to get up.
There's a moment in the video, too, where like you can see you try and you – nope.
Right. So I get up, and I skating off on my own 2 feet. And when you sustain an injury in Dallas, they have a bigger door that opens up between the benches. We come out of the door down at one end from our locker room, but if there's an injury, they can open the door where the stars come out and you can exit that way. It's a shorter distance to the visiting room. And as I'm trying to make my way up and step over the board or over the dasher and get in. My stick gets caught, and I get spun around, and I bang my head right into the metal bleachers to add a little insult to injury. But yeah, I came away unscathed. And we got back to the meal room that night after the game. We were staying the night in Dallas, and my teammates were like, "You got to send a tweet out." And I wasn't great at sending tweets at the time, but that was what we conjured up, and it was. The responses were great. I received some protective equipment in the mail from people that, these were indestructible cans, as we call them, and we had a lot of good laughs, without a doubt.
Is that so? Obviously, Alex Goligoski's been in Minnesota for some time. Is this something that does it come up at all? Do you guys joke about it?
Well, yes, we did talk about it earlier, but now that seems like it was 20 years ago.
Sure.
But it was scary in the moment, and
sure.
There's been some good humor out of it since.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you have kids at the time?
I did.
Well, that had to be at least some sort of a protective thought in the back of your mind as all this was happening.
That was my wife Kim's response. Yeah.
Henny, as always, this has been great. I just have a few more questions for you.
Sure.
This story really translates to. We just had a kind of a meet and greet with the front office staff down here in Iowa, many who you were just meeting for the first time. And the one thing you brought up in there was you were always considered everywhere you went as a good teammate. The same can be said of you as a player development staff member. I can speak to that. Joey can speak to that. Everybody down here in the Wild dressing room would speak to that. What makes up a good teammate? If you had to put together an evaluation form and you got to check this box and check this box, what do you think a good teammate looks like? And then what are you looking for in finding good teammates to help fill this locker room that we're sitting in with that?
Well, a good teammate for me is someone who's committed to the person sitting next to him. For me, it was always, as hard as it was sometimes, especially at this level, I was committed to my teammates' success. I didn't want to focus too much on them getting called up as a negative to me, right? I felt pushing players to get better and helping players get better and being a part of their experience made me a better player. And I am committed to that in this role, to helping people find success in what they're trying to do, whether it be on the business side, whether it be players, coaches, anyone within our organization. I'm here to help in regards to that.
Keep going.
You good?
You got
anything else? I only got my one final question is, and Joey wore his jeans today. I forgot to wear my jeans today, and I'm going to give our assistant coach Ben Simon some credit on this one for a great text that we had in the staff group chat about now that you're in the GM chair, do you still go to Menards to get the jeans, or does this elevate you past the Menards jeans decisions that we discussed the last time we had you in this seat?
It absolutely does not. You got to remain who you are, right? Your true colors. The one joke with Benny, though, it is getting to be jort season, so I might have to get over there and see what my options are.
Would you? But cut your own jorts, right?
Not
a pre-cut jort purchase guy.
No, I've got some jeans at home that are, the knees are starting to wear through, so
they're heading towards jorts.
It might be time for jorts.
Yeah. It might be time for jorts.
I gotta let my wife. My wife needs to make those decisions for me.
That's a smart husband right there. Very
correct.
Smart husband. Well, Matt, from Joey, from myself, from everybody. I tweeted it too when it happened. It was news that warmed my heart. As much as I enjoyed working with Mike Murray very dearly, was thrilled for him when he got the news of the promotion, which obviously came out at the same time as you getting this promotion, and couldn't think of a better person to grab the flag and keep on moving this team up the hill. Cannot wait for this iteration of the Iowa Wild with Matt Hendricks at the helm, and can't wait to begin working with you as we already have. And we'll turn the camera off and I'll help you with that do not disturb firewall as my first acting duty working for you now.
Thanks, Benny. I look forward to it. Joey, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Always a treat. third recurring guest in Ridin the Bus history, Matt Hendricks, and I've got my first acting duties as his team services / broadcaster guy in figuring out how to get his Do Not Disturb to let certain people through, which was a real revelation for me in my profession. You could block out all the haters.
I got nothing for you there. I got nothing for you there.
But you like that one.
Yeah, it was all right.
The old man get over here getting trendy.
Yeah.
Getting trendy, blocking out those haters.
There's some joke there to be made about you and.
Okay, maybe you'll get to it by the end of the episode. You'll have something for us.
Okay. You know what? It's not that. But you had mentioned.
Shoot, I was really hoping for a good.
No, you had mentioned the other day. We were talking about TV shows to watch. You mentioned we were at the Heart Walk. You mentioned Tacoma FD.
Yes.
I started watching it, and all that just made me think of was it Ike? Ike Crystal is his name.
He's one of my favorite characters.
Every time he's got something, and they're like, you got it, and he's like, oh no, I don't. That's what that just instantly made me think of. Yeah. So I don't know.
Tacoma FD. Check if you want to watch what the voice of the Iowa Wild's watching. Tacoma FD. I think it is hilarious.
It's a great mindless show.
Totally.
Like it's pretty funny. I mean, it's the Broken Lizard Super Troopers guys.
Yeah.
So but
one of the Broken Lizard guys, Breck High School, my alma mater.
Oh.
Eric Stolhansky. I've not seen him yet in Tacoma FD, but we don't need to get too deep into the weeds on Tacoma FD, but I recommend it. It's a great show. Great stuff with Matt Hendricks. Per usual, he's an easy one. He's one that is easy to show up to without prep like I did because he's good at speaking and he's very he's got a very upbeat personality and just an easy guy to chat with, and that will make everybody's lives down here that much better. Big shoes to fill, though, in my book. Working with Mike Murray was a real treat as well. And not that I'm done working with Mike or we're done working with Mike. He's going to still have some tie-in. I know it's not going to be a complete upheaval of what, Matt is not just going to absolutely take over everything that Mike did, but certainly a much heavier hand on the day-to-day and specifically the roster side of Iowa. I think Mike's going to keep, from what I've been told, a little bit more of the clerical side of it and still have some hand in the AHL, which is smart because, again, Mike Murray working in the league office as long as he did. Smart to keep him in some connection there. So congrats to both of those guys. Mike Murray getting promoted to the assistant general manager role of the Minnesota Wild, where I feel he will do wonderfully with Bill Guerin. Matt Sells getting that promotion as well. And then obviously Hendy into this chair. Thoughts moving forward, something that we're excited about. We've kicked around this idea, and I know right when we started the show, we had this idea of how to get our fans more involved, and then it just fell flat. And we were young and inexperienced podcasters at the time, and now 31 episodes in, we're grizzled. I've grown a beard.
We've changed.
Yes, we've changed, and we think this will be a really great way to get our fans involved. The bus line.
Yep.
What can you tell us about the bus line?
Well, I think, not to spin it back to you, but you talk about it. You talk about it.
Oh, you do.
It's etiquette on the bus, right? Etiquette on the bus. You don't talk on the phone on the bus. You don't do those things. You don't take phone calls. You just don't take phone calls on the bus. You wait till you get off the bus. So what we're gonna start doing.
Well, you can, but if you do, it's literally like you have to set up your own phone booth.
Smother yourself
you can
with a
tell
pillow
because usually it's the staff or the older guys because they have wives at home. When you want to check in, but they're going to bed, and you're about to get on a 7-hour bus ride overnight. Yeah. And so if you don't get to the bus in time, usually what the scene looks like, not to get too into it, but it's an interesting thing because people don't get to experience this. Our fans don't get to see this. There's usually right before everybody gets on the bus to leave, player here, player there, staff member here, standing all around outside of the bus, all on their phones. Whether it's young player checking in with dad or maybe agent or mom, or it's older player checking in with wife or kid or you name it, that's what it looks like because they all know that once that wheel turns on the bus, you don't want to take a phone call.
It's
if you do, you're like leaning up against the window. You're like, hey, honey, really? It's funny. Natalie, my wife, knows if I get there quick enough, she can tell because I'm more loose and I'm speaking louder. And she can tell. She goes, "You're on the bus, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep, just here. Yep, everything's good, right?" And she knows because it's like this weird unwritten rule that you can't just be having this loud, big phone call on the bus, or people are going to start looking at you like, "What are you doing?"
It's like being on an airplane, right? Don't be on your phone on the airplane. People still do it, but don't do
it. Yes, that's a great analogy.
But the whole thing is
a long way around the barn. Here's what we're going to do and how you can get involved.
You don't want people on the phone. So usually when we get to this third period segment of the podcast, we're off the bus, right? So we're going to start taking phone calls. And that's what we want. We want phone calls. We set up a voicemail line.
We did.
And we're calling it the bus line.
I had nothing to do with it.
Well, I mean, it was kind of your idea, but
you like a lot of things
the keys and got the thing set up.
I'm good at ideas, but I don't really execute on much of it. I really throw it to you for like the itinerary. What are we going to talk about today?
Anyways,
yes.
We got a voicemail line set up, and we want you guys to call in with your questions,
or if you just want to say something. Open to it.
Yeah, it's up to you. Right?
Yeah, whatever you want to say.
But rather than asking through questions through Twitter and Facebook and all that, because people may not see a post here and there because you're working or you miss it. You don't have notifications set up for the Iowa Wild, which you should. But this line is going to be an option for people. So if you want it, we hope you want it. We
really
hope you want it. Here's the number: 515-318-7863. That's 515-318-7863. Give us a call. Give us your questions, your thoughts. We'll answer as much as we can. Basically, as much as...
If you have a good jingle to help people remember the bus line phone number, kind of like an 867-5309 type thing, that'd be pretty fun, wouldn't it?
I should have looked at 7863. I wonder if we can, create some kind of hockey terms out of the letters with call 1-800 this.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that as soon as we finish here.
Great.
And maybe that'll be it going forward. But 515-318-7863. Give us a call, leave a message, questions, thoughts, whatever it may be, and any that are appropriate.
Of course.
We'll bring on and we'll try to talk through them. And it's a good way to get you guys involved, hear your voices on the podcast, which I know a lot of people have been clamoring for. We're excited about that.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I think as we continue to talk about our summer plans and whatnot, we've still got to get together and figure out what the schedule looks like. Our hope, obviously, as it is every offseason, a lot more episodes than it is in season. Our goal would be to do one per week.
Yeah.
Is that the clip we're going to be at? I don't know just yet. We're not going to promise. We've done that before, and that shot us.
We do not promise things on this show.
We've
learned, again, when we were younger, less grizzled podcasters. We made these promises and
empty promises.
Yeah,
we're not gonna do that to you guys.
Don't come here for empty promises. No more.
But ideally, we would love to do an episode per week. We've
Yeah.
got a big list of potential guests lined up. If you guys have anybody you'd love to hear from or you think we should talk to, let us know because we want to add to that list. We think the list we have is pretty good. A lot of the people on our list are probably the names you would probably expect. But if there's somebody a little bit more
off the beaten path.
Yeah.
That maybe we're not thinking of. Yes.
Yeah. Let us know. Somebody who may be a unique voice to hear from.
I think about Haley Moore. That was an off the beat. That was from the league office.
We've talked about Chad Evers having an official on.
Here's your call.
Different.
We tried to get a hold of him last year, and he ghosted me.
Yeah.
Here's your call. He's retired now. He's hung up the whistle for the final time. American League linesman, local guy. Want to get Chad in here to talk. I think it'd be fascinating to really bend the ear of an official because and this has actually been something that's come up too. I'd love to ask him too about people are starting to clamor now for the fact that officials don't have to go on the stand after games to talk about their calls.
Yeah.
I'd love to get his thoughts on what maybe he's absolutely against it or maybe he's like, especially then he's not reffing anymore. Get on there. Yeah. So that'd be a fun one. But especially some of the off the wall ideas, not the fastballs down the middle. I'd love to see some, who are we not thinking of? We could use your help with that.
Yep.
So that's our challenge for the summer.
So that's a big piece for us. So let us know if you have guests. Summer bets are about to come into full swing again, depending on what side of the Stanley Cup Finals we end up on could be something we make a fun little wager on. I don't think I know we've talked about this. You wouldn't classify them as your Timberwolves. I wouldn't classify them as my Celtics.
But hey, let's go Wolves.
We are both pulling for each of those teams. That is a strong possibility to be the NBA Finals matchup, which we could have some real fun with.
Yes.
I mean, do we reintroduce the part 2 of the goalie bet? Like, there's some things we wanted. So we'll think of some fun things. But if you've got ideas for these fun bets, if you've got ideas for punishments, I think back to what we did 2 years ago when it was podcasting and full equipment. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was
I think
great.
we could do that one again. So if you got those ideas, let us know. And then we're starting to really talk about state fair stuff and state fair prep. We'll do our live show from the fair.
Joey's loosening up the arm a
recording
little
from the
bit.
fair.
Get ready for your. Are you getting nervous at all?
I'm not.
For defending your cow chip throwing title?
Truthfully, I haven't really thought about it. But we are going to defend the cow chip throwing title.
True champions don't get nervous.
No.
You've been there before.
I'm
just trying to not step over the line this year.
No, yeah. Step one, don't get
I literally thought
disqualified.
about it the other day. I'm like, if I step over the line again, I don't know what I'll do.
Step one, don't get
I
disqualified.
might just walk right out of the fairground.
I have thought about it. It's not true. I have thought about it a little bit, just randomly sometimes, where it's like, what would I do this year? Like, would I do something differently in terms of like my technique?
I don't know. You threw it out of the field. Like
Yeah,
they couldn't
yeah.
measure it.
Well, I have a thought of what I want to do.
Can't share it here though.
No, I don't.
No. You don't want
I can't
anybody
share my secrets.
for all the cow chip contestants that
Yeah,
listen to
you're
this
one of 'em.
podcast.
You're one
That's
of
true.
them.
There's at least one.
Yeah.
At least one that listens to this podcast.
I know the kind of chip that I'm looking for, and it worked out really well last year. The shape that it was almost like discus shaped, and when it caught the air, it just flew perfectly. But I have a thought in my mind of how I want to throw it, what I want to do. My goal is to break this world record. Whatever it is, my goal is to break it. I'm going to find out what it is. I think I found it last year. I'm going to look at it at some point. But I wasn't that far off last year, if I remember correctly. So still got the ribbons on my fridge.
Anything else in your fridge?
Project. On my fridge?
Yeah.
In my fridge? No. On my
That could be a
fridge.
good segment. What's on Joey's fridge this week?
What's on my fridge? I've got pictures of my dog, pictures of my family, a picture of me wakeboarding in Montana, a thank you card for officiating a friend's wedding that basically said at the end, we wrote this before you officiated the wedding, don't screw it up. What else is on there? Some magnets. Save the dates for weddings.
Yeah.
Feel the Dreams magnet. When I went out there, I got a magnet.
And this has been episode 1 of What's on Joey's Fridge, brought to you by Ken Moore.
it's gonna be the same every time we do it.
There you go.
I don't really add anything to it, but yeah,
I won't go long into this, but this just reminded me of one of the funnier episodes at my house. When you get married, your mom or your dad or whoever houses all of your like childhood stuff. Mm-hmm. Eventually will send it to you. They're like, get rid of this. Like, you're done. You're starting your own home, your own household, your own family. And then eventually you have to go through all of it. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's just painstaking.
Yeah.
One of the things I found in one of the copious amounts of boxes my mother kept of my childhood stuff, and I just love this. And the real deep, true Wild fans that listen to our games on the road will get this joke. And you'll get it too, because you have to listen to the games on the road because it's a part of your job.
It's not. It's really not. My day to day is not.
I'm flattered that you listen to them. Thank you.
I just watch them because I don't really do anything else. So I'm
Except
around.
for wonder what you're going to put on your fridge.
Yeah, so I'm around. But I also like watching. I like being in the know on what's happening with the team. But I'm certainly not like. It's not something I'm obligated to do for my job because unless I'm helping cover Soulsville for the night, I don't have to.
I'd have ran with that. You could have blasted me on that one. So thanks for not.
Yeah.
I found a math award from 8th grade. Mr.
Wow.
Nystrom. Excellence in math.
You're not a math guy.
Maybe
That's
I am.
something.
Or somewhere along the line, something happened. Because
like I was
as
arguing-
of 8th grade math, I was an award-winning mathematician in
This is
8th grade.
in my family group chat.
Put it right on the fridge, front and center. Said, "Here you go, world." For anybody who calls me out on my math and the fact that I frequently have trouble getting to 10 or getting times of the game wrong,
You'll
or
always have 8th grade.
I'll always have 8th grade. Can never take that away from me.
Yeah, my family group
right on
chat.
the fridge.
Me and my brothers were arguing last week about who was like the worst student, basically, of the three of us, and it turned into like well, I had 2 tutors in high school. What did you have? And it was like, well, I only had 1, or this and that. And it's I didn't like doing my homework. And my 2 younger brothers, one was doing the other one's homework. It was a whole thing. Yeah. But here we are.
Here we are.
All successful adults and individuals.
Successful.
All right.
That's for both. That wasn't directed at you.
Yeah.
That is for both
No,
of us.
yeah.
For the record,
We're successful.
Well, something like that.
That's all I got, though.
That's
for
all we
this
got.
week.
Episode 31. Anything we haven't gotten to? Really glad we had math on the bottom of your itinerary there. Glad we had that one on there.
Mm-hmm. It's right there.
It's right
in
there.
Big
Yeah,
letters. Talk
math.
about math.
Math. Heaven
boy.
knows I like talking about
boy.
math. Well, thanks to Matt Hendricks. And congratulations to Matt and to Matt Sells and to Mike Murray up with the Minnesota Wild on their promotions. Thank you, as always, Joey Goldstein, my partner in podcasting here. And thanks to all of you for jumping on board as well. And to Jeremy Core with Executive Podcast Solutions for making this episode possible. Until our next show, which we're hoping is very soon, I am Ben Gislason saying thanks for stopping by. And as always, this has been Ridin' the Bus, episode 31, the official Iowa Wild podcast presented by Explore Minnesota. And until next time, 2 honks for the win.